This is the ultimate question. What phone should I buy? Google comes out with a Pixel phone every year, and the most recent one was disappointing, on paper. But how does it work with real-world usage? Let's find out. Should you buy the Google Pixel 5 in 2021? Hello everyone, this is Matt from Real World Review. Check out the social media listed above if you want to talk tech, and subscribe if you want to continue watching tech. Let's get started. The front screen is actually good. I went into this blind, kind of forgetting what the specs are, and I was actually kind of surprised when I learned what they are. This 6-inch 1080p flat OLED is actually really nice, giving us 430 pixels per inch as well as 90Hz refresh rate. The brightness is not that bad, with tests ranging from about 500 to 600 nits, but I would say that it's more like 600 nits, pretty much on par or slightly better than the Pixel 4. Surprisingly, this screen actually works really well for my usage. I generally want a larger or wider screen, but somehow this one just works. My hands never felt cramped, and I guess you can always go for the Pixel 4a 5G if you do want a larger screen, with that 90Hz refresh rate being the trade-off. The only issue I had with the screen are two things. The first one is that there is a hole punch for the camera, which isn't really that bad following what the Pixel 4a had, but the major issue is the speaker behind the screen. Yes, just like the LG G8, the speaker is behind the screen, so you have to hear the speaker through the screen. It's actually a really interesting design, but the use case is just not that good and it makes stuff sound strange. As for the loudspeaker aspect of it, it's actually not the worst, with the quality suffering just a little bit, but it's definitely not as loud as a normal dual speaker setup. But when you're on a phone call, it doesn't really sound that good either. But back to the screen. It is a nice screen, even though Google went for a 1080p option when I wanted a 1440p option, but that's okay. I never really had an issue with the actual quality of the images, and normally Google doesn't go for a 1440p screen in this size. And of course, we do get tap to wake, as well as the wonderful always-on display. The hardware is where normally you would find all your complaints reading this on paper, but once you use the phone, you start to realize that it's actually not that bad. We start with the Snapdragon 765G processor with 8GB of RAM, the same combo that was found in the Motorola Razr 5G, only this time, it's better. Something that doesn't surprise me is that the software is nicely optimized for this phone. While the 765G chip technically makes it inferior to the Pixel 4's 855 chip, the Pixel 5 gives me the same power, if not slightly better, and now with 5G support. This is powered by stock Android 11, with the Android 12 update right around the corner, giving you a sweet stock experience with some Pixel-only aspects here and there. When it comes to actually using the phone, I didn't really find many issues, with apps opening up pretty fast, making me forget that this is not really a flagship device. And to power this phone is a 4080 mAh battery, another aspect that works out pretty well. Don't expect 2-day battery life here, but it is possible, lasting a full day with even heavier usage. Then to charge this phone, we are left with 18-watt charging, which is getting kind of old, but it still charges pretty fast, as well as wireless charging. Yes, through that metal back, we get wireless charging at about 10 watts. Then we have reverse wireless charging, allowing you to charge little products and phones, the former being the main use case. Now, let's explain that back. Ironically, it looks like Google actually took off the explanation of what the back is because I can't really find it anywhere, but I do have a picture of when they launched the phone and how they advertised it. When the Pixel 5 launched, Google said that this phone had 100% recycled aluminum enclosure, which is true, but misleading. So the front of the phone is Gorilla Glass 6 glass, with a little plastic trim around it. Then the back is a bioresin, which doesn't really sound like aluminum at all. Instead, the phone's frame is aluminum, just like the iPhone 5C, with the plastic-feeling bioresin being what you touch all the time. It's true, but it's definitely misleading. And the reason behind this is because the wireless charging cannot go through metal, but saying that your phone is plastic isn't really a good look, so here's the compromise that Google had to make. Honestly, I don't see any issues with it, seeing that it's pretty durable against regular usage, but it's still a little bit misleading to your customers. The back also houses the actual plastic fingerprint scanner, which is nice to see again, but weird seeing that Google dropped face detection altogether, not even allowing for 2D face unlock. On the bottom, we get a USB-C 3.1 port, then we get a slot for the bottom-facing speaker and the microphone. All three of these work well, but again, the stereo setup is just kind of weird, but at least it sounds good. Lastly, this phone is IP68 water resistant and weighs only 151 grams, the latter being surprising and refreshing. Overall, this is an interesting and lacking build on paper, but in real life, there's a lot to love about this phone. And one of those things to love is the camera setup. Last time, Google gave us a telephoto sensor because Google said that ultra-wide was gimmicky, or something like that. I'm paraphrasing. 1 year later, we have this phone. The front camera is a boring 8 megapixel fixed focus lens, while the back houses the dual sensors, one being a standard 12.2 megapixel sensor with optical image stabilization, while the other camera is a 16 megapixel ultra-wide sensor. Yes, the ultra-wide sensor that Google said was dumb. Again, I'm paraphrasing.
So while wide angle can be fun, we think telephoto is more important.
When moving to the Pixel 5 from the Pixel 4, it makes you wonder why we didn't get a telephoto and an ultra-wide sensor. Regardless, the cameras are outrageous, giving us spectacular images regardless of which sensor is used, thanks to Google's image processing. This even applies to the front camera, even though I still miss the focusable Pixel 3 camera. As for video, we finally get 4K at 60 frames per second, something that should have happened on the Pixel 3, but Google blocked it. Overall, you shouldn't run into many issues with these cameras, but the lack of a telephoto sensor is somewhat annoying. But the one on the Pixel 4 wasn't really the best, so I can't really complain too much. You still get the usual, spectacular night sight, which triggers automatically now if you want to, whether you're in the ultra-wide sensor or even in portrait mode. Overall, this is an amazing setup even with the modest amount of cameras and modes. Pixel phones have always been some of the best for point-and-shoot cameras, but we are still dealing with the same type of camera that we got in the original Pixel. So this design definitely needs an update for the next Pixel. Just think, in 5 years of Pixels, we went from 2 cameras to 3, and that's it. Now this seems like a normal phone, but at the same time, this is an experiment. Starting with the processor, this is a test to see if Google needs to make flagship phones, or if they can just focus on software. At the time of the release, Google was able to release a 5G phone at an amazing price at $499, the Pixel 4a 5G. But when they added better things like a 90Hz refresh rate, water resistance, wireless charging, 5G ultra-wideband support, and more, we were given this $700 Pixel 5. But at the same time, there's no Pixel 5 XL. But also there was no Pixel 4a XL. Then we were given a 5G version of a Pixel 4a, but in a different size. All of this is just for Google to kind of figure out what people want and what they should sell. I mean, the Pixel 4a came in one variant, literally called just black. Now the Pixel 5 comes with 2 colors, just black and Sword of Sage, but again with just one storage size, being 128 gigabytes of UFS 2.1 storage that is not expandable. Google is still learning, which is kind of ironic seeing how the general public perceives Google. For me, I wanted 128 gigabytes or more storage, 4K at 60 frames per second, front-facing speakers, a fast processor, and a nice camera system. But the funny thing is that Google could have given us that all in 2018 with the Pixel 3 XL. They kind of almost did. So should you buy the Google Pixel 5? I would say yes, but only if it fits what you want. I actually enjoyed using this phone a lot, but I do get why some people don't want this phone on paper. Being a 6-inch screen, this is somewhat of a compact phone, which not many phones are in this category. Even though we have a mid-range processor, it still performs similar to the Pixel 4, which was fast in the first place, just now we have more RAM. At $699, there are lots of phones to choose from, some that may even seem better, but none that will give you this full package that this phone does. And that's my review of the Google Pixel 5, the phone that's better in real life than it is on paper. But what do you think? Let me know in the social above, and as always, thanks for watching.